One of the best strategies we can use as property investors to manufacture some value ourselves is to renovate properties for profit. Now, myself and Crystal over the last 3 years have done this 4 times on our properties and have had some amazing success. So in today's video, we're going to take you through some of the key things, some 6 simple tips you can use to your advantage so that you can make the most profit through your renovation to speed up your journey to financial freedom. Now, first things first, it's always going to start with the strategy, right? You need to be willing to do the work. You need to be willing to get stuck in and manufacture the value yourself, because those renovations aren't going to happen themselves. And a lot of the time when you're paying other tradespeople to do the work, you've got to pay huge premiums. So you need to get stuck in and do a lot of the work yourself. Now, when it comes to the strategy side of things, it really depends on the property type. It'll depend on the purchase price and the market conditions, because not always can you use this strategy to your advantage. We find that operating this strategy or using this strategy to your advantage works best during hot markets when the market is naturally increasing more than 5% per annum, because you know there is demand for those property types at that point. So it's not something that you generally want to use when market conditions are a little bit softer, when you're not seeing properties moving in a positive direction. So there's a lot of things that you need to take into consideration when thinking about implementing this strategy, because you can't just always go out there, purchase a renovator, conduct that renovation and sell it for a profit. There is so much more that comes into it, which the second thing is obviously talking about the scope of works and understanding where the value actually lies. Now, for you, Crystal, you've got a lot of experience with this and you've done all 3 of the different types of renovation. So why don't you take us through the different options and how you can use them to your advantage?
Of course. So when I talk about the scope of works for renovation, I try to break it down into 3 categories. So you've got a cosmetic renovation, a minor renovation, and a major renovation. Like Simon said, I've renovated 3 properties over the last 3 years and used all of these 3 strategies. So a cosmetic renovation, we're really talking to doing surface level things with the property. So window furnishings, light fittings, paint, flooring, landscaping, things that are going to spruce up the property but aren't overly expensive or time consuming. So they really just tidy up the property from a very cosmetic level, something you may do if you buy a bit of a renovator and you want to maximize your rental return. Give it a quick tidy up, get a better rental return in the short term, or something you may do a few years down the track just to kind of freshen up the home, eliminate some of the wear and tear that may have occurred on an investment property, and again, maximize that rental. So cosmetic reno is sort of like your base level renovation, which we find a lot of properties end up needing at some stage within that first 5 years. A fresh coat of paint, some new carpets, some light fittings. It really just takes it from being a little bit dated or drab to looking a bit better.
Absolutely.
Drab to fab. The next one is a minor renovation.
I love it.
Which I refer to things like maybe sprucing up bathrooms, kitchens, in addition to that cosmetic stuff that you've done. So minor renovations, we're not referring to structural work or introducing bedrooms, bathrooms, changing the attributes of the property. We're really talking about fully ripping out and repairing or replacing the bathroom, ripping out and replacing the kitchen, leaving things where they are, but stripping them and starting again. You
could almost open up the internal floor plan as well, because a lot of the older properties generally have weird pokey floor plans. So some of them are non-load bearing, especially for the old school brick and tiles that were built in the 80s. You've got all these random rooms. You can open that up to create that open plan living at a pretty affordable cost.
Yeah, for sure. And it changes the look and feel of the home massively. I think it was the first property we bought, actually, our first home that we ended up renovating and selling. We kind of removed a wall in the kitchen and created an island bench. Obviously, we made sure these weren't load-bearing walls. That opened up the living area. We fully replaced the kitchen, fully replaced the bathroom, and then did all of the cosmetic work as well, inside and outside paint, landscaping, fencing, those sorts of things. And it made a massive difference to the bottom line of that property.
Yeah, this is a strategy that I've been using for my home at the moment as well. We've recently recorded a video, Simon's renovation tour and Crystal's renovation tour as well, where you can see what we've been able to do there. But those minor renovations where you're not necessarily changing anything structurally, but you are dramatically upgrading things, kitchen, bathroom, opening the floor plan, still doing all of the cosmetic things like paint, flooring, window coverings, light fittings, maybe adding some air conditioning throughout the property, upgrading the landscaping, upgrading the fencing, tidy, nice things like that. But then you can also take it to the next level, the deepest level of these ones as well, which you've also done.
Yeah, so the property we're currently in today, this is what I'd consider a major renovation that we've done here. So we've turned it from a 4-bedroom, 1-bathroom home to a 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-living room home. We've added a pool. We've massively landscaped the property, doubling the size of the yard space that's usable here.
Yeah. Back deck.
Huge back deck. Actually, we did 2 decks. So these are the types of things that often require approvals when it comes to building, because they're expensive renovations. You're changing the attributes of the home. So you often got to make sure you're getting the right, I guess, forms in place and approvals in place and speaking to the right people before you do these types of renovations, and obviously the most costly. In our instance here, we were lucky we bought the property at a time that the market then increased dramatically. So we could justify those costs on a property, and it's also our own home. We don't intend on moving anytime soon. So that risk versus reward, for us, it was about making this property our own. It, at the same time, has yielded quite a lot of profit that we could, as we go into later, we could use some of that money down the track. But for what it is, like, we did this work for our own gain, I guess. So that's sort of touching on the 3 different types of renovations.
And I think like your scope of work is going to determine your strategy as well, because most investors are going to have to use the cosmetic reno at some point throughout their journey. Any long-term investor is going to have to do that. When it comes to looking at a minor renovation, you know, you're going to need more skills. You're going to need more know-how. You're going to need a bigger team to be able to do that. And then the major renos, you're going to need a lot of people, which we'll get into the tradespeople that you need and how you can save a little bit of money there. But your scope of works is going to dictate the strategy to an extent. Now, you know, with cosmetic renovation properties, for us as buyers agents and property investors, we typically like to purchase established properties in established suburbs. You know, most of these suburbs that we invest in Brisbane were developed back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. So a lot of the houses are quite old. Now, some of them have already been renovated. So if it's not your foray, then you can still purchase a low maintenance tenant ready property. But a lot of these older style homes need some work, either just a basic cosmetic reno to get some tenants in there and get a better rental yield, or you can look at a minor or a major reno to actually do a little bit more work. Now, the third step and the third tip is establishing a budget. And this is a really important part of the process, because this is going to actually make or break whether or not you generate a profit from the deal. So how do we go about establishing a budget?
Yeah, of course. So once you've established a strategy and the scope of works required, you can speak to the necessary people who are going to be able to cost up that job a little bit. I like to do these first 3 steps when I'm buying the property, because then it's going to dictate, am I going to buy the property or not? Because is it going to yield the result I want it to yield? So
100%.
It's a lot of due diligence to do on the way in to make sure that you're making that money on the way out. So establishing a budget comes from, in our instance and for the clients that work with us, we have really good property managers who then have a team of advisors they contact. So builders, plumbers, painters, electricians, any necessary tradespeople you're going to need to at least do the cosmetic and minor parts of the renovation. But speaking to local tradespeople, in my circumstance, my husband's a carpenter and he works with a lot of builders. So we've now, after doing 3 renovations, got the skills to roughly price up most jobs that we want to do around a property. We know the cost of timber, but that's not everyone. So making sure you're speaking to the right people who can cost up the work that's required on the property before you even make a decision about whether you're going ahead with this property or not. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to buy a property and think it's going to cost you $40,000 to do some basic work and it blows out to $150,000 and there goes the profit margin that you're intending on making.
Absolutely. You can't be emotional about this process. No. You need to have your line in the sand, because if you do get emotional, you might go for higher spec stuff, which actually won't add much value. And if you know how to do this stuff properly, you can use lower spec stuff that looks like higher spec stuff anyway to generate more profits there as well. But the fourth tip is obviously identifying those tradespeople and what works they'll be able to do. What work can we do ourselves as well, I think is important, because what we're trying to do here is keep as much money in our pocket as we possibly can, maximize those profits. So you need to look at everything at a very granular level. But when it comes to identifying tradespeople, who's going to be involved and what are they going to be doing for you?
Of course. So you can go to the top level and approach a builder straight up, that they will handle everything for you. Often with that, you're paying a premium for the overall job, because the builder then is taking their little cherry off the top to coordinate the project management of the property. Or you can establish these trades yourself. So you want to paint the house, find a painter, or get quotes off a couple of different painters and compare the quotes. You want to replace light fittings and put an aircon in, you've got to speak to an electrician. Redoing the bathroom, again, you're going to need a plumber, a tiler, probably a carpenter. Ripping out walls, you're going to need a carpenter. Doing the yards, you can find a landscaper, but these are things that we usually find you can do yourself. Same with the painting in reality. If you want to get your hands dirty and you're in a position to do so, they are ways where you can save a little bit of money on the renovation. If you're going down the route of a major renovation, like I touched on earlier, you're going to need approvals for certain things. You're going to need someone to facilitate lodging those applications and stuff like that. So it's really about assessing what you can do yourself and what you can't do yourself, and then making sure you've got the right people in place, making sure you're getting a couple of quotes to compare them and find the best possible outcome for you, someone that's going to do the scope of works that you need. Not necessarily the most affordable or the most expensive, but finding that happy ground that's going to justify the overall budget. And then I guess just working with the trades that feel right for you. Can they deliver in the time frame that you need them to deliver on? How long is it going to take them? How long is the property going to be vacant for the trades to be in the property? How long is it going to take before they can even do the work? Should you be renting it out for the short term until you can lock this work in 6 months from now? Right now, there's quite a big trade shortage in Queensland and around Australia. So understanding this before you go into the reno, so you're not sitting with a vacant property for a really long time, is important. Which sort of leads me into our next point, project management. So you want to know a lot of these things from the outset so that you're not ripping out a bathroom and then living in a house with no bathroom for 6 months because you forgot to lock in the tiler. I think obviously the project management is a tough part. Like if you go to a builder, you'll probably get a project manager there and they'll facilitate and make sure everything happens in a timely manner. But if you're going to try and save more money, project manage that yourself. You need to really create a schedule. You need to know what's going to be happening and when, and you need to make sure that you're managing those tradespeople to the best of your ability to ensure that the project is happening as quick as possible, because time is money with these. You're going to have to be paying the interest on that property while it is being renovated, and you obviously want to try and get that money back into your pocket as quick as you can. So making sure that you're managing those trades to the best of your ability. Now, obviously in your experience, you have the sort of two-tier approach where, you're very good at project managing and ensuring things are going there. But then you've got your husband who can do a lot of the work himself as a carpenter, a lot of the more expensive work. But on top of that, Matt also has relationships with other tradespeople because working in the industry. So I find that if you have a unique skill set, if you are a tradesperson, these types of strategies are best suited for you because you're used to being on a job site. You're used to conducting the work. You've got the relationships. You can do a lot of the work yourself. You can save a lot more money. And that is, how you're going to make a bit more money. Whereas if you are not going to be project managing, when you're going to be employing a builder to do it all for you, your margins are going to be a lot lower and it's going to be harder for you to generate a profit. So you need to have thick skin. You need to have a good skill set. You need to have great partners to support you through this process to make sure that you get the result, because the last thing is obviously the project completion.
what happens once you have finished this project? And that's obviously going to link back to your strategy. Do we have a longer term strategy? Do we have a shorter term strategy? Is it a medium term strategy? But once you've completed the project, what's the next steps?
Yeah, of course. So there's a few different options when you've completed the project. So obviously we're discussing renovating for a profit here. So we want to figure out whether there's profit that's been made through the renovation that we've done, starting by revaluing the home. So contacting local real estate agents to see what the property would be worth from a market value perspective, and contacting your broker to see what the bank will value the property at. And then from there, you can figure out what to do with the property. Are you planning on re-letting the property at a higher rental so that you've got a cash flow positive property that's going to now be paying you an income? Are you refinancing the property to release some equity because you've made 100K on this overall project, and that's going to then give you the opportunity to get a deposit for your next property? Are you planning on selling it to pay down debt on your own home or purchase another investment property? So there are multiple options at the end of this, and that ties back in with the strategy at the beginning. You want to know what the end goal is. But for me personally, it's changed a little bit. I had properties that I did purchase as long-term holds in the beginning, did the renovation, realised there was quite a good chunk of money there that I could use today. And for my husband and I, we couldn't have gone and made that money or saved that money in a short period of time. So we figured selling that property to buy into another one was the best outcome for us at the time. But it's really about assessing your situation, where you're at financially, speaking to your broker and seeing the best way to use the profit in the property that you've made. Yeah,
and I also think with that, it's, for me, when I'm renovating or, when I will in the future, I want to obviously delay that project as long as I can. If you're planning to hold the property for a long time, or even for 5 years or something like that, you generally want to conduct the renovations just before you sell the property, because you want it to look the best that it's going to look, which is immediately after you complete the renovation, when you are looking to sell that property. So it's all going to be dependent on the strategy. And, to wrap this up, it is certainly not for the faint-hearted. It is a much more active strategy. You need to get involved with the process. You need to have experience. You need to have a great team of advisors and tradespeople supporting you. And you need to be able to manage the project quite well. But if all done well, can generate amazing profits, which will speed up your accumulation phase or your debt reduction phase. So thanks so much for jumping on and sharing your thoughts today, Crystal. We do help some clients purchase these types of assets, and we point them in the right direction as to how they can execute the project as well, because we do work as buyer's agents where we help people successfully purchase investment properties up here in the Brisbane market. And what we try to do as investors is align the strategy based on your values, based on your goals, and based on your skill set as well. So if you're a tradesperson that's thinking about purchasing a property, this could be a really, really good strategy for you to implement. Now, if you're not too sure what type of strategy you want to implement, then we would love to offer you a free one-on-one strategy session. You can access that via our website, www.pumpedonproperty.com. You can follow the free strategy session links to book in a call with myself, where we'll talk about exactly where you're at right now, exactly where you want to be in the future. We can talk about your property investment goals and the current market conditions and how you can use these to your advantage. And then you can go and take that information, go and crush it yourself, or you can be one of the small number of people that we work with each month, and we'll hold your hand through that entire journey to ensure that you get the best possible result. But either way, we just wish you the best of luck. We want the best for everybody out there. We want everybody to generate the best return on their investment. So thanks heaps, Chris, for sharing all of your thoughts and experience today. And let's get stuck into it.
Thanks.
Woo! That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Getting cool, bro. Yeah. Oh, sweaty. So sweaty. Oh, that's good. Look at that.
Very nice, eh?
Oh.